Hi, everyone. My name is Arina Zohrabian. I am the Director of Admissions here at the American University of Armenia. We are here with Stay at Home with Me as part of the Repat Armenia Working from Home talk about the RepatTalks series. So it's amazing to be here. And I'm told to talk about things such as working from home, dealing with it's going to be a little bit hard and answer any questions you have. So please feel free to send over any questions. I'll start off with a very brief introduction. So as I mentioned, my name is Arina. I moved to Armenia in 2002, 18 years ago, if you can believe it, for what was meant to be a one-year journey. It was an interesting competition with my brother. He'd come to volunteer for 3 months. I said, I'm going to come with the Armenian Volunteer Corps for a year so that I beat him. And 18 years later, I feel like I'm still beating him in that competition. I ended up being very lucky, got a job with an amazing DC-based nonprofit that did US government work called IREX. And then about 7-8 years ago, I got an amazing offer from the American University of Armenia, where I am really, really excited to be part of their admissions team. It is something that I'm truly passionate about. So I'll be talking about all of those things. Now, staying at home has been interesting. Unlike David, I'm not having my children here because then I wouldn't be able to talk, but I have a prop. Here they are. They're so much cuter in photos because they don't get to talk back. So this is my older one, Alexandra. She's currently in 8th grade. This is Alex. He's now 2 years old. He gets the most attention. And this is Armina, who's currently in 5th grade. So if you have questions about education, schooling in Armenia, being quarantined with 3 kids and a dog, then those are questions that I would love to field. So in my current position, as I mentioned, I'm the Director of Admissions at the American University of Armenia. We have been put in a situation that I think all universities are trying to sort of figure out how to handle. How do you deal with the admission side? How do we deal with applicants when there are no more exams? Handle no longer being able to offer courses in a classroom. So those are things that I'll talk to you a little bit later. But first, I'm going to talk about working from home. Manumeng tuna. I will tell you that the whole self-isolation has been a little bit easier for me. About a year ago, we moved outside of the Gentron, outside of the city center. So now I'm in Yekort Masiv, second Masiv. I live in a house, which is nice. I don't have neighbors that are too close by. I have a yard. I've got a crazy dog. And so when we need some entertainment, we deal with the dog. I think the hardest adjustment has been the kids. In terms of going from a actual, physical classroom to dealing with online classes. Because as much as I'd like to think that they're, extremely organized online, they don't have that skill set yet. We have always tried to limit their computer usage, and now it's like, oh, Alexandra, you can use as much computer as you want because, well, classes are on it, homework's done through it. So that has been, I think, one of the most biggest challenges. The other thing is sort of dealing with the house, right? Cleaning, cooking, getting everything ready because when the kids are no longer at school, they need to eat here. When I'm not at AUA, I need to eat here. So that's also been a major sort of adjustment. So starting off with my day, what typically happens? So I wake up pretty early because in addition to being mom and director of admissions and whatnot, I'm also apparently an alarm clock because the 15 alarm clocks that my children have to wake up in preparation for their classes, for their online classes, that's really not enough. So I do that really annoying. I don't know if any of you have seen Freaky Friday, where they're going in to wake up the kids. So that's me, like literally going in, threatening my children with water and things like that to get them up in preparation for their classroom environment. So that is sort of the start of my day. I'll go down, make my morning cup of coffee. This is my evening cup of coffee right there. And then we'll start with emails. It's the one downtime I have. My 3-year-old is usually not awake at that time. So I do a lot of my emails, get everything on record. I have some of my team here. Datavik, hi Datavik. We use Facebook as a means to communicate with my entire admissions team. So I will call them on Facebook. and we'll sort of figure out what are the big things that we have, what are the questions that we need to answer, what are the tasks that we need to get through, both on a daily basis and a little bit more long term. So that's sort of the start of the day. And then throughout the rest of the day, while I'm having these calls, I have Alex, again, in the background. He's very cute, but is very disruptive to work. And I'm very lucky that I have a mother-in-law who lives with us, and she helps with him as much as she can, but she's also a little bit older. So we try to not, I try not to take advantage of that. So then, it's pretty much email all day, online, a lot of different Zoom discussions with our university, a lot of discussions with applicants. We're using Skype as a mode if applicants have questions. We try to be very transparent and try to be as responsive as we can to any of their questions. So if they want a one-on-one meeting with me, we do it from afar. So I invite them again to my home through Skype, and we have that discussion. So I want to quickly talk a little bit about how AUA has been able to handle the adjustments, and I'll start a little bit. I'm going to pull up my notes. I have notes taken here. I'm going to pull up a little bit about what the university has done. So, we are a on-campus university. We typically have not offered online classes in the past. So this was a major shift to our standard operating procedures. It was not easy, but our community, which includes our faculty, which includes our students, we've done everything to ensure that everyone has sort of not fallen behind on their coursework. Our faculty and staff has embraced teaching in this new way. We've been using Zoom. There's a lot of different platforms that our faculty have been using, and everyone is very committed to creating a meaningful learning environment. So I think that's really, really important. We're also understanding that self-isolation, being holed up in an apartment or a house, can be difficult. So we're always constantly discussing how we can ensure that our students and our faculty and everyone is faring well. So one of the cool statistics that I learned from Nareg, who's also, I think, here with us, hi Nareg, is that through our ICTS unit, our Internet Communications and Technology unit, we held an average of 500 hours of teaching every single day. So once this quarantine has started and once we've been sort of transitioned to an online learning, we've done more than 500 hours of teaching each day, which is a huge indicator for any university, for us. The courses are continuing. For the students, I think one of the major questions we received, well, what about those students who don't have, laptops or computers in their home? We understand that might be an issue. So we have, through our library, the university is able to offer laptops and tablets for students to borrow during this quarantine, so that they are able to keep up with their coursework. So that's also something I'm really excited and proud of. Courses are continuing as scheduled. Some of the exams, midterms, have been slightly delayed because obviously faculty are no longer able to offer them in person. So there's been a lot of redesigning to ensure that these assessments can be met through these online modalities. Finals, I assume, yes, I've heard, is going to remain as scheduled. And while, we hope that classes everywhere around the world will, return to their traditional face-to-face modality, we understand that very likely might not be possible. So that's about the university. Nareg just corrected me. So it's now 230 to 300 hours a day. Nareg, that's not my fault. You gave me 500 hours in an email. Now, in terms of the admissions department, the admissions office, it's been a really interesting transition of sort of fielding, well, I can no longer take the SAT because College Board canceled all of their exams. I can no longer take the TOEFL. I can no longer take the GRE. I can no longer take the GMAT. All of these exams have been canceled. I can no longer call my school to obtain a transcript, which is one of your application requirements. So I'm really proud. My team and me, we were able to, I think, react very, very quickly. We created a dedicated page that I'm going to share in the comments here. So just give me a second while I type that in. So we created a website called admissions.aua.am/coronavirus. I put the link there in the comments, which has talked about all of the adjustments that we are now doing to accommodate our applicants who have been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. March 31st was our undergraduate regular admissions deadline, and we received, a significant number of applications, and, applicants were extremely concerned about no longer being able to take these exams. April 30th is going to be, a similar deadline, a regular deadline for our graduate applicants. Again, a lot of concern for our graduate applicants because they can no longer take the GRE and the GMAT. So some of these adjustments that as a university we've made have been at the graduate level. We have waived the GRE GMAT for every single program that requires it for this year. So I think that's that's a significant reaction from the university. We understand it's not likely that these students or applicants will be able to take it, so it's been completely waived. And in its place, applicants will be expected to provide some sort of information about their math statistical knowledge and attach that to their application, and very likely will be asked about that during their interview, if they're invited to an interview. At the undergraduate level, very similar. While we haven't waived any of the exams, we will be offering alternative in-house assessments. So whether that's English or whether that's for math. So those are two things that we've made where we're trying to be as accommodating as we possibly can. I'm not seeing any questions. I'd love for questions to come in. Let me also just quickly run through to see what were some of the questions that Rima wanted me to talk through. So let me go through those. In terms of how I'm dealing with it, I think that's a really important question. It is a very stressful time. I don't remember where I saw this, but I think the best approach that I saw to handling the coronavirus and making sure that you stay safe is that anytime you walk out the door, you assume anyone that you're interacting with has the coronavirus. So that's sort of the way that I've been handling it. And for me, I think the best way that I've been able to handle sort of somewhat staying sane is that I've created a routine. So I'm up very early in the morning, I'm getting on emails, I'm doing my morning coffee, I'm getting the kids up, getting them ready online for their online Zoom. Once Alex, the 2-year-old, wakes up, trying to spend a little bit of time getting him dressed, taking him downstairs to his mother-in-law, so that his grandmother, I should say, she's my mother-in-law, that was a weird mistake. So that I can then come back and take any calls or any work that I'm sort of working on. I also have a routine in terms of I try to go out on run. We play ping pong as a family. I'm trying to engage the kids on chores. That's not something I'm being very successful with. So if you guys have any recommendations, I would love to hear it, because obviously it's much more difficult to clean when everyone's at home all day long. And then, in the evening, once I'm able to put all the kids down to sleep, that's also a lot of my very important quiet time where I'm able to get online and again do a lot of the work that I wasn't able to do during the day because there's so much commotion. So around midnight to 3 a.m. I'm back online. I'm trying to take care of all the AUA related things. And for my team who's watching, I'm sure that they're shaking their heads like, Arina, please sleep. We don't want you up at that time. In terms of dealing with the kids, again, I briefly mentioned that. I've got to say kudos to the Armenian educational system. When I first moved to Armenia, my kids have been raised here. They started their elementary education. I mean, they've done all of their schooling in Armenia. I hear a lot of complaints about the school system, but so far I've been extremely pleased. I actually started my oldest daughter in a public school, but unfortunately had to switch her to public school only because to a private school, only because I didn't have the capability of, taking her to school, bringing her back. So a private school allows me the comfort of knowing that, there's a school bus and things like that. So the online education, I think, for a lot of parents has been a really difficult transition. My Armenian language skills, especially reading, are improving dramatically because now I'm stuck helping my 5th grade and 8th grader, much more my 5th grader. I made a joke on Facebook a couple of weeks back saying that I'm going to demand a 5th grade diploma certificate because I'm literally sitting along with my middle daughter and trying to sort of help her understand the emails that are coming through and what tasks she has and managing her calendar and managing her Outlook. Filing. So again, my Office of Admissions, whoever's online and listening, they know that I'm huge about making sure that the inbox is not cluttered and that it's filed and everything is well organized. So that's something that I'm trying to teach my kids. But apparently, I'm not as patient as I thought I was. And then obviously trying to help them ensure that they're meeting their deadlines. I'm getting a lot of calls from their dasriks, their homeroom teachers, saying that they missed this, they missed that. So that adjustment has been pretty stressful, especially when my Armenian language skills are lacking and I'm, being forced to sort of try to help them as much as I can. So Tamar writes me, hi Irina, what are some new things students can expect once the coronavirus has died down? Tamara, are you talking about AUA students specifically, or are you talking about my kids? I'll start off with my kids because I think that one's a little bit easier for me to answer. I can tell from my own two children, they're very used to Mondays through Fridays being out of the house most of the day. So I think they're really excited to get back to their routine of seeing their friends, seeing their classmates, having that routine down, seeing their teachers, having that social interaction. And then obviously being able to go out. My kids love their hamburgers, and as much as, I know that there's menu.am and buy.am, we've been doing a lot more cooking. So I think those are some of the things from a home perspective. They'll be able to go and do a lot more of those activities that they were used to doing. From an AUA perspective, again, I mean, it's been a pretty seamless transition. I do expect that this state of emergency will last likely through the end of this month, and then there's only about 1 or 2 weeks left in the semester. So for AUA students, if things die down and the government says, institutions, universities are back up and running, then physical classrooms are very a likely scenario, and just sort of getting back to that social day-to-day classroom environment. So that's hopefully, Tamarjan, I answered your question. What else do I have for you guys? I think for now, since I'm on the Repat Armenia page, I'm sure there are some people who are thinking about moving to Armenia. And there's always the question, do I live in Gentron city or do I live outside of the city? And I'd like to give sort of that perspective from my eyes. I lived in Gentron, smack in the middle of Pushkin and North Avenue for about 16 years, up until November of last year, 16 and a half years. And, that was amazing. It was great. But for anyone that's coming with a family, I have definitely appreciated being outside of the city. And so this quarantine has been a lot easier for us, as I mentioned, just because we're already isolated in terms of no longer being in that Poki Gentron where there's so many more people. Transportation generally is pretty good in Armenia. I mean, we do have those ghetto marshukas where every driver thinks that, they might be a Formula One racer, but that's improved a lot over the years. So, for those of you that are thinking about one day possibly moving over to Armenia, do definitely consider outside of, the city center where prices are a lot more affordable. And, still getting from place to place is easy because of that transportation. I think that's it. I don't really, let me see if Rima sent me any other questions. And I'd love for you guys to chime in with any additional questions. Oh, I see someone wrote something. Let me see what that is. Okay. So one of the questions I've actually been seeing a lot on Repat Armenia and Armenian Repatriates Network is how we're handling sort of like the grocery shopping and things like that. And I've actually seen a lot of posts about that, and that's something that I feel pretty strongly about. There are a lot of big supermarkets. I think we've all mentioned them. There's SAS, there's City. But what's been amazing is to see sort of the supermarkets that are, the mom and pop shops that are around sort of the areas that you live. And so we are trying to go to those. We'll go once every 3 days with our masks, with our gloves, and we'll go to those stores. We'll do whatever shopping we need to do. And while online shopping is definitely something that's prevalent in Armenia, we're trying to help these stores stay afloat. And something beautiful that I saw a couple of days ago, there's this one fruit and veggie store that we always go to that's maybe about a 7-minute walk away from our store. And, they cater to a lot of different clientele. You have a lot of people who are very wealthy in this neighborhood who can afford a lot. And then you have a lot of people who, have very, very little money. And it was beautiful to see how quickly this fruits and vegetable store had reacted. That were coming in, they were saying, hey, if you guys have anything extra, 500 dram, 1,000 dram. Rima's writing me. She's telling me what else to talk about. If you have a little bit more money, then please, or if you have a little bit of extra money, please buy something for those folks of ours, our regular Hajahortz customers who can't, afford to buy things right now because of this pandemic, because everything is closed. And so we buy those items and we leave them, and then those in need are able to go take them. So that was a reaction that I thought was really nice. Okay, so Rima is telling me to talk a little bit more about my background. Okay. So where am I from? As I mentioned, I grew up mostly in the US, but before the US, I was born in the UK, London. And then I lived for my first years in Iran. And then from Iran, I moved over to the US. I got my sort of elementary school, middle school, high school education in the US. And then for college, interesting, I grew up in Massachusetts, amazing city to go to university. They've got amazing colleges and universities there, but my parents said, Arina, you're allowed to go anywhere to school except for the state of Massachusetts. We want you to go far away to become independent. Now, I'm not sure if they wanted me to become independent or if they were just kicking me far away so they could get freedom, but it worked. I ended up going to school up in Montreal to McGill University. And so I graduated McGill in 2002 and then decided to move to, no, I'm lying, 2001. Yeah, I graduated in 2001, and I decided to move to Spain for about 6 months to learn a little bit of the language. I think I saw Gabriel at one point join. I don't speak Spanish anymore, so don't test me on that. And while I was in Spain, 9/11 happened. It was a really, really sad time. And as I was returning finally to the US, I remember bumping into sort of a football team, a soccer team. And I see that the name of that soccer team at the airport, it starts with A, it ends with IA, and I'm thinking, Albania, what could it be? And as I go closer, I sort of hear that they're talking Armenian, and I'm like, whoa, it's Armenia. And so that was my first sort of understanding of Armenia is not just outside of Massachusetts. It's not just the Armenian Students Association that I was part of at McGill. And that actually piqued my interest. And my brother, having done 3 months, that was the ultimate reason that I came to Armenia through the ABC. I graduated with a background in marketing and finance. I also have background in human resources. And then, when I moved here, I did a volunteering with Bars Media, an amazing documentary film studio that does amazing work. I worked with Vartan Hovanesyan, and we talk about this pandemic and how stressful it is. I remember in 2002, that winter, my water pipes were frozen. I didn't like cooking then either, but I remember I learned how to make spas because I think it's like the most amazing soup ever. And so I had made spas and I put it in my kitchen and I said, okay, I'm going to be a little lazy. I don't want to wash it right now. So I put a little bit of water. And I lived in this weird house setup where, I had a kitchen, my neighbor had a kitchen, the neighbor had a bathroom, I had a bathroom, and then we had like rooms. So it was like this one shared area and then lots of different rooms. So not all of the rooms were heated. So a couple of hours later, I go back to sort of wash my dishes, and of course everything is completely frozen, right? So I couldn't get the water out. It was complete ice. It had turned to ice in a couple of hours. Back then, if you needed water, if you had a buck, the water tank, you had it. If not, you maybe got it 1 or 2 hours. Cell phones really back then were there weren't too many of them. Electricity would go on and off a lot. So, I think Armenia has progressed a lot. And so that's one of the major differences that we all have started to take advantage of, right? It's become sort of like standard life for us now, but things were much worse off back then. So Tamar is writing another question. Let me just quickly read that. I know a lot of people moving from Lebanon now who can't find degrees they would like to major in. Will AUA be adding new programs in the near future? I know more design-related courses are in demand, digital design especially. Tamar, that is a question. That's a great question. Right now, the university offers 5 degrees at the undergraduate level and 9 degrees at the graduate level. While we are always in discussions of adding new programs, there is nothing slated for fall 2020, which is what recruitment cycle we're in. Fall 2021, there is a likelihood that we might have another bachelor's program, another master's program. I don't think that it will be in the field of design. We might have something in interdisciplinary studies, but we don't have any formal information at this point. What I can tell, especially at the undergraduate level, for anyone who's interested, for transferring, they're in Lebanon, they want to move to Armenia, get in touch with us. We're really responsive on email. We're really good about answering any of your questions. And while you might not necessarily find exactly what you want, the way that the American University of Armenia works and the way that most American universities work is we have a very wide general education offering. So while ultimately you will have to major in either business, English and communications, engineering sciences, data science, or computer science, you also get a pretty wide range of general education courses that might be of interest to you and things like that. Um, Danforth is asking me, do you know around when the replacement test for undergrad students will be? Danforth, that is an amazing question. We are currently in discussions. We're working on designing the English assessments. We're currently working on understanding what that math assessment will be like. Unfortunately, at this point, I have no updates other than we'll know a lot more at the end of April. We're trying to figure things out a little bit sooner, but it does take a lot of time because there's a lot of discussions that we need to have to make sure. One of the things that I can tell you is that we understand that it's possible that this quarantine might go well through past the month of April. So we're also trying to make sure that whatever alternative we do create will also be available online because we don't want to design something, an assessment, and then find out, well, we're on lockdown well through May, well through June. So again, we hope to have more information at the end of April. So back to Rima's, just a little bit more about some of the changes that I've seen in Armenia. A lot of people ask me in terms of living here, and why am I not raising my children in the US, or why did I not go to Canada, or why am I not in the UK? And I will say that for me, the safety of Armenia, the amazing hospitality of this country, the people just in general, has been an amazing, probably the prominent reason why I've decided to live here. And it's been sort of an amazing thing to see as I've started raising a family here. And I think one of the best experiences was when my oldest daughter was about 2 years old. We went to an outdoor live concert. There was a little theater behind Abobian Street somewhere. And I don't know what I was doing, apparently not being the best parent ever, but at one point, I see Alexandra, my daughter, has run down. It's sort of like this seating where it's on different stairs. I forget the word in English. And so she had run down, and she was basically, she had gone over the balcony and was trying to look down. By the time I see her, I'm thinking, oh my God, she's going to jump. She thinks she's Superman. She thinks she can fly. And there were about 6 or 7 18, 19-year-old boys who had literally gone there, and they were like, they were holding her and they were making sure that she was safe until I got there. And I just remember thinking, what an amazing experience, to know that you have the comfort of knowing that people are going to sort of make sure that your kids are okay. Obviously, we never take advantage of that, but that's been one of the amazing things to see living in Armenia. When I used to live off of North Avenue, we would go on walks, my kids would ride their scooters, and my middle child, she's a little bit more like me. She's got a lot more attitude, and she likes to sort of scare me at times. Don't know where she gets that from. And so she would intentionally run far off away from me, and I would literally lose her on North Avenue. Again, amazing parenting skills, Arina. And again, it was, while I would always have this major stress just from having been raised in the US, if you lose your kids, then God knows what's going to happen. Someone's abducted them. There's a lot of fear that everything goes through your mind. I had maybe a little bit less concern because I knew that this was Yerevan. So that's, again, I think one of the biggest reasons to be in Armenia. I received a phone call a couple of weeks ago from the US Embassy just saying, hey, coronavirus, we want to let you know that flights are no longer going to be functioning for a while. So if you want to ride out the storm in the US, then we recommend you go now. And I remember in my mind, I'm thinking, no, I think I'd rather take my chances here in Yerevan. And so that has, I think, sort of, my parents are in Oakland, California, my brother's in San Francisco, and I'm here in Yerevan, and it's been really interesting to sort of hear how the differences of them dealing with the coronavirus pandemic and us here. And I think we've all heard about toilet paper, right? So I get an email from a friend who lives in Southern California, and they're a little bit older, and she was just writing and saying that her husband had to go to 6, 7 different supermarkets to find toilet paper because they were down to 3 rolls. They literally couldn't find any online. They couldn't find any at the supermarkets, and they had a really kind neighbor who had, they did not hoard, but had stocked up. who was able to ultimately give them. And then looking at Armenia, granted, we're a small country, small population, but the stores are completely stocked up. I typically am sort of like, I have the Costco mindset. I like to go shop for a month, so I'll get my toilet paper, everything, like my kitchen towels, all my cleaning supplies to last me for at least a couple of months. But here it's been amazing to see how people have been accommodating. You haven't seen that hoarding. You haven't seen, people seem to be following the rule of the law a lot more. Another funny story that I have is, again, as I'm trying to keep sane and as I'm trying to keep this routine, I had just bought myself a gym membership on March 8th. That was my March 8th present to myself. I said, okay, it's my third child. I haven't been back to the gym. I need to start working out. I need to work on getting my back straight again. And I had gone for maybe 2 weeks straight or about 10 days straight. And then obviously the gym closes down because of this, this quarantine. So I think, Inchanem, what do I do so that I don't go back to sort of not doing anything and being extremely lazy? And so I started running. And I take one of my kids with me, is always with me. So I write down the note, where I'm from, what time I'm leaving, what time I'm expected to come back, where I'm, my address and things like that. So we would go, and on one of those routes, so I'm running, sweating. I don't look good. Either Alexandra or Armina, they're with me on their scooters, and I get stopped by a police officer. Their pasta your documents. So I whip out my driver's license. I whip out the piece of paper in my really poor Armenian language skills that says that I'm going to exercise, and I make the joke of, Pashinyan said that we all need to exercise. This is me exercising. And he, and sort of the response is this young police officer, and he stopped me twice now. His response was, and Pashinyan has told us to stop everyone and make sure that they're self-quarantining. So that was a really, really funny story. Tamar has written, you have so many books. Do you buy them locally or ship them over from the US? I have every single book that I have here. Unfortunately, is mostly from the US, and it's a collection of over 13 years. So the bottom shelves are dedicated to my children. These middle shelves are more for Alexandra, 13 plus. And then we have a lot more books downstairs that we, over the past 18 years of me living here, every time we go, we would ship a lot of books. So yeah, that is our collection, and it's funny. I've started to read a lot more now to Alex. One of his favorite books is Panda Bear, and it's been amazing. I'm one of the things that we've done is I'm really cautious about making sure that they speak fluent English by the time that they grow up. And so I only speak English to them. My husband and my mother-in-law will speak Armenian or Russian, and so my 2-year-old speaks more Armenian than he does English. And so I'm reading Panda Bear, and I'm trying to get him to say the words. And then he'll randomly cut in saying, Atam neuni, and I'm trying to tell him, yes, he's mad. And then he gives me sort of this like dirty little, cute Alex look. Here's that, just to remind you what he looks like. That's him right there. And then he'll say, so he forces me into Armenian. It's really, really very cute. So I'm trying to think what else I can talk about. Cooking. I hate cooking. I'm doing a whole lot more of it. My older daughter is really excited about trying new different recipes. So it's been an interesting sort of issue of, do we let her cook? Because of course, when she cooks, she doesn't clean up after herself, and she doesn't cook neatly. Everything is everywhere. But we're trying to experiment with different types of cuisines, and that's been nice. As I mentioned, I grew up in Iran, and so when I was growing up, even in the US, my mother, who I think is probably one of the best chefs, my dad too is also amazing, but my mom is the one that did most of the cooking when I was growing up. So I'm sort of trying to learn all of the recipes that I grew up with, and it's been interesting to see how my kids are reacting to those. What else? I'd love for you guys to throw more questions my way. I'm trying to remember some of the other questions. Narek just wrote, I hate you. Thanks, Narek. We love you too. What else can I talk to you guys about? Okay, Vartan is just asking me a question. Arina John, do your children use Russian to hide certain topics from you? Do you find the knowledge of Russian an absolute must to overcome integration issues in Armenia? Vartan, actually a really good question, and I'm going to answer that with a couple of different answers. I have been extremely lazy, might not be the right word, but I've always sort of put off learning Russian. And I think, even when my Armenian language skills were not strong, and this is something that I hear a lot from the Lebanese Armenians who are moving here, I don't speak the same Armenian. I don't have the Russian. It's going to be really, really difficult for me to find a job. So, Martin, I'm going to take your question and start with that. It has actually, my response to that is when I moved to Armenia, my Armenian is decent now. My kids still think I sound like a loony when I talk in Armenian. I have this sort of major accent that's partial American Armenian, partial Barska Hairan. So I think we can all make excuses about finding jobs if we want to. For me, I moved here again with very, very weak Armenian language skills. Obviously I've built it up in the past 17, 18 years, but I was able to secure a job. It's just about being very persistent, about always working on yourself, that concept of lifelong learning, and putting yourself out there, right? Applying to a lot of different things. So I think for those of you that are like, well, am I going to be able to figure things out in Armenia? Well, you definitely could. You just need to put yourself out there. And I think Armenia has had a lot of progress in the past few years, or the past 10, 15 years, especially in the field of IT. There is a need for Arabic speakers. There's a need for Farsi speakers. There's a need for Russian speakers. So I think a lot of the repats who are coming back have a lot to offer. They just need to sort of be patient and sort of take the time to search. And Repat Armenia is an amazing network that you guys are taking advantage. Do my children use Russian to hide certain topics from me? So my husband and my mother-in-law were both educated in Russian, so their Russian language skills are near native, if not native. And my biggest regret raising Alexandra and Armina was that I didn't force Russian at a younger age. I actually was adamant about not letting Russian language be used before they went to first grade. The reason being I wanted to make sure that they were fluent in English and that they were fluent in Armenian. And that was probably another major parenting fail because kids are like sponges. The earlier you start them on all three languages, the earlier they'll get them. So yes, they do sometimes speak in Russian. They now again, remember, so they spend a lot of time in America. They're citizens of the U.S. And my husband, after the New Year holiday, took them to Russia for the first time. And so they've spent a lot of time in the U.S. Like they've been to D.C., they've been to California, they've been to all of these different places, and they came back and they said, we want to move to Russia. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, whoa, what just happened? So I think Russian language skills for anyone who speaks Armenian, which is a very, very difficult language to begin with, I think Russian language skills will definitely help. It's not necessarily an absolute to overcome integration issues because, as I mentioned, I've integrated. I've been here for 18 years, and I might have had some issues and things like that, but it's been fine. But don't put it off. If you're interested in learning the language, then start sooner rather than later. Tamar is writing, my daughter learns her English from shows. She's been translating to me, but she knows Russian and Armenian perfectly. Tamar, I'm extremely jealous. I'm hoping that my younger Alex will speak Russian perfectly. It's funny. He, gusi gusi ga ga ga. He's got the numbers down. So I've asked my mother-in-law to be the Russian speaker. So I have my husband in Armenian, the nanny in Armenian, me in English, and then my mother-in-law in Russian. So it's been interesting to see him trying to learn three languages at the same time. And he's definitely always willing to talk. And I would have brought him up, but he would have literally taken over this conversation and I would not have been able to say anything. Okay, Tamar writes, in terms of employment, what type of CVs does AUA prefer? Single page, no personal info, American style, I'm assuming. How does the school look at CVs that are more European Russian based with multiple pages, a lot of personal info, large photos, etc.? Do not include photos on the CVs. There is no need for photos on the CVs. Obviously, as an American university, we typically, at the undergraduate level, we don't require a CV or a resume as part of the application process. But at the graduate level, we do, and we say it's a maximum of 4 pages. But honestly, resumes should never be more than 2-3 pages. Single page is obviously better if you can fit it. Sometimes you're putting a lot of your research, your academic work, things like that. So 2-3 pages, not much longer. But yes, we as a university, I think we typically do prefer the American style but but you're not, applicants who are using the European or Russian-based type of templates, they're not going to be, counted against just because of that. One of the issues that we do see in Armenia, and prior to my job at AUA, I worked with IREX, as I mentioned, where I, looked at thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of resumes. And in Armenia, I think people do a really poor job with resumes in the sense that, this is the document that sells you, right? You need to put a lot of work, you need to put a lot of effort into it. It shouldn't be something that just takes you a day to compile. So, putting a lot more data in there, what you've done, showing why someone would benefit from hiring you, keeping it current, making sure that you're doing targeted cover letters. So that's another huge thing. So at AUA, we actually, another big thing that I had totally forgotten, we're actually hiring right now for an admissions counselor in my office. It is a lot of fun and a lot of stress to work in the Office of Admissions. So if you guys are interested, definitely, look at the job announcement that's on our jobs website, on the AUA website. We'd love to interview and learn more about you. But, I've received jobs for admissions counselor positions in the past where they're writing an email to a different organization. So their cover letter is not meant for AUA. Obviously, so they've created a template and they just forgot to update. And that's something that no one should ever do. If you guys are applying for jobs, you want to definitely take a lot of time, pour your heart into that cover letter, and put a lot of effort into sort of individualizing your resume as well to make sure that it's relevant to whatever you're applying to. Zovak writes, how did you improve your Armenian language? Did you take private lessons or you were self-taught? Zovak, I think it was just living here, right? So when again, I've been extremely fortunate. I think the reason that I'm not much stronger in Armenian is that all of my jobs have been English-based. So when I was the country director for IREX, everything was in English, all of our email communication, and whatever was Armenian language related, we had a teacher training program, a lot of that content, I would read through a lot of contracts in Armenian and things like that. And so it wasn't necessarily self-taught, it was just through sort of like my day-to-day work that I needed to keep working on, sort of reviewing things like that. And then now when I'm at AUA, I speak to a lot of the parents. My kids are in school, so I'm going through from first grade up until now. I've been looking at their Mayani, and I think I'm probably at a third or fourth grade level. My fifth grade Armenia has already passed me in terms of Armenian language skills. It's a very difficult language. But yeah, so that's been, unfortunately, I have not put more effort into it just because I've been so busy with 3 kids. I'll blame the dog here too. The dog and a full-time job and now sort of also just the self-quarantine and I don't have a minute to breathe. A lot of people think working from home might be a little bit easier. For me, it's been completely the opposite because my son, he knows when I'm at home. And so you can hear him screaming, trying to vie for my attention. Or, when he's in the same room, I think Datavik, I'm not sure if she's online, but a very funny story is, we're having these Facebook chats with my entire Office of Admissions, and he will literally come to the computer, take the screen to the laptop, and he will shut it down. And, you can't get mad because he's 2.5 and he's like, dude, I'm more important than your computer and your work, which is completely accurate, but it makes, it makes doing your work a lot more difficult. What else? This entire sort of quarantine, coronavirus has made me a complete clean freak. I've always been all about cleaning, but I literally have bought those spray bottles, the ones that they also have at all of the hair salons. I bought Spirt. So I have Spirt in these spray bottles, and I'm literally walking around like a crazy person. Any handle, any door handle, anything that we put our hands on, I'm probably cleaning 3, 4, 5 times a day. Washing hands, my hands are now extremely rough because I'm washing my hands probably like 15 times an hour. So that's been sort of an interesting and annoying adjustment to have to deal with, but hey, it's for good. Okay, I think I'm trying to think what else I can talk about. In terms of, I think one of the resources I didn't have when I was moving to Armenia that a lot of you do is one, the job opportunities that Repat Armenia is helping. They give you so many resources to help you transition. So definitely take advantage of those. And it was a lot more difficult to try to navigate moving to Armenia. We shipped a car here, and Repat Armenia was not existent back then to sort of tell us how to do it so that we wouldn't have to pay the customs as a diasporan bringing sort of a used car. So definitely, keep in touch with them, make sure that you're in contact with them regularly. They also now have a great jobs source. So if you guys are looking for work, they have a lot of great contacts. So I think that's something that I wish existed back in the day. I've always said, right? Fate has wanted me to stay in Armenia because when I was applying for my early position at IREX, I was competing with, Harvard PhDs, and I was extremely lucky because they were also overqualified and I was the only sort of underqualified person. But understanding that network, having those contacts is something that's going to be very, very helpful for you. And these are people who sort of have a network. They know who needs what, and so that's a great matching system that they do. So we've been traveling with Repat Armenia a couple of times. I was recently with them in Ukraine. And I'm hopeful that more and more people will take advantage of, coming back to Armenia because it is an amazing country to be in and to live in. So I think that's it. Rima, do you want, okay, so Rima's saying, no, Rima, this was from old. I think that's it. If you guys have no more questions, I think I'm going to end the live and go back to my crazy 2-year-old and my daughters, maybe play a little bit of ping pong. I think I'll part with the following. It's a lot easier to stay sane and be more effective at your home if you, again, as I mentioned, you create sort of a schedule for yourself. My team always makes fun of me when we get on these Facebook lives. They're all in their hoodies. They haven't probably have showered, but it doesn't look like they've showered. But make sure that you're following that routine. Just because you're at home doesn't mean you still have sort of a designated work area. So this is my designated work area that I'm usually doing my work in. If I'm also watching Alex at that time, I go into his room where he comes and turns off my computer. So definitely not a very effective thing there. Set aside time for lunch, set aside time for dinner, but make sure that you're adhering to that schedule. I think that will make it a lot easier. Rima is saying that she loves me. Rima, I think I love you more. But it's been amazing to be here with you guys. And hopefully, if you have any more questions, reach out to Rima at Repat or anyone at Repat, and I'd be happy to answer those. But honestly, take the risk. I think, I've lived about half of my life now here in Armenia, and it was probably the absolute best move I could have made. And I have a lot of Spurka every time I go back to the US. They say, why would you move to Armenia? And then I have a lot of Hayastansis who will ask me, why would you leave America? And it's easy. I think quality of life is amazing here. You live with people who are extremely warm, who are extremely educated. We definitely as a country have our issues, but I think generally everything that we're doing here makes a difference. There is an impact, and so that's just I feel like I'm a lot more fulfilled here than I would be in the U.S. So thank you all. Stay at home. Make sure that you're not venturing out too much, and I'll hopefully see you at some point soon. If you guys have any admissions related questions, please go to our website admissions.aua.am. If you're interested in learning about our admissions counselor position, reach out to me either through Facebook or through my email, which I will again write into the comments here, azohrabian@aua.am, and I look forward to keeping in touch with many of you. So Tamara is saying, because life is amazing here, thank goodness people have mostly stopped asking me. Yeah, it actually does. That's actually another thing I'll talk about. I remember when I had just had Alexandra, and I would walk out. So I am one of those few Armenians who does not like overdressing my child, right? They put so much clothing on newborns. And I remember, so all of my kids are December babies, literally all born within that 4-week same period, starting from December 17th until January 14th. So, once April, May started to come around, or even like, the February, March months, I would take them out with, a little bit of a blanket, a little bit of a heavy like jacket, and I would start to get screamed at, especially in the summer when I would refuse to put socks on because it was so hot. And I was being told that, your kids are going to get so sick. And a lot of people get frustrated by that, but it just shows like people are so compassionate. They actually care. And yes, it can be annoying if you're hearing it too much, but it's again an amazing thing to see that people here do care, and they do feel comfortable giving you input. So I think everything is based on how you, you can choose to get frustrated by a lot of the experiences that you face here, or you can choose to enjoy them. I think positivity has helped me love life here much more than some of the frustrations that I've had to deal with. And I think the final note, I actually married an Armenian from Armenia, so that's another big thing that I didn't mention. And that has been, a lot of people say, oh, why would you do that? And yes, there are definitely cultural differences. I'm not sure if it's harder for him or for me, but it's also a beautiful thing, and it's an amazing place to hopefully, for those of you not married, come and meet your spouse. There's someone on this chat that I want to get married, but I'm not going to say her name so that she does not kill me the next time I see her. All right, thanks everyone. Enjoy the evening, stay safe, Manatek Tuna, and make sure to join Repat Armenia on its next Repat Talks. Stay at home with whoever's next. Bye guys.